Good afternoon, everybody, and a very warm welcome to our today's webinar on steel credits. Is the industry uptick sustainable? I am Debal Mitra, and along with me, I have my colleagues Ajay, Dhaka, and Ankur Singh. We have structured our discussion in the form of a presentation, which would be visible on your screen. At the end of the presentation, we would have a short panel discussion with our sector expert here, followed by a Q&A session with the participants. Participants would be kindly requested to key in their questions in the slot provided. We would take the Q&A session at the end. Our expert and guest speaker for today is a very distinguished personality from the Indian steel industry, Mr. V.R. Sharma, Managing Director of Jindal Steel and Power Limited. Mr. Sharma has over 36 years of experience in the industry, leading multi-locational steel, power, cement, and mining operations. He has been instrumental in bringing in transformational changes in various steel companies. Being a renowned name in steel industry, Mr. Sharma is a frequent speaker in various industry seminars and forums organized by industry bodies such as CII, FICCI, PhD Chamber of Commerce, etc. Mr. Sharma, a very hearty welcome to you, and thank you for taking your time out for today's webinar.
You're welcome.
While the headwinds of the COVID-19 pandemic brought about an unsettling disruption in the global economy, governments and central banks across the world responded with vital fiscal and monetary packages to support the economies. As a result, many industries have witnessed a strong rebound in demand, reaching or even surpassing pre-COVID levels. The global steel industry has also staged a remarkable recovery from the COVID-induced slowdown, primarily led by a rebound in demand in China and India. After being severely hit by the strictest lockdown imposed in India, our domestic steel industry has also reported a rapid recovery, led initially by historically high exports and later riding on a rebound in domestic steel consumption. From a situation of extreme pessimism in lockdown, the industry has reached a stage of decade-high steel prices. Despite exorbitantly high global iron ore prices, the buoyancy in the steel demand made it a perfect recipe for Indian players to increase utilization rates and earn the highest ever spreads. But is this exuberance in the steel industry really sustainable? How has the pandemic really impacted the credit profile of integrated and non-integrated steel players? We shall try to provide a perspective on these aspects of the industry in our today's webinar, wherein we shall cover the overview of the steel industry performance during the COVID-19 pandemic, trends in prices and in exports and imports, recent developments and outlook, and CARE's rating dispersion and the movement in ratings in the steel sector. May I now request Ankur to start the presentation, please? Over to you, Ankur.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Debal. So steel is one of the most important engineering and construction material and enabler of wide range of manufacturing activities. The vitality of steel industry can be corroborated by the fact that the total value addition, either supported or facilitated by the steel industry, accounts for 2.9 trillion US dollars, which is equivalent to 3.3% of the global GDP. According to a research by World Steel Association, steel industry facilitates more than 90 million jobs globally. Now, if you look at the graph, the production of steel has grown over the years with a CAGR of 4.23% from 2000 to 2020, while reacting to the challenges faced by global economy, be it the financial crisis of 2008 or the COVID-19 pandemic. China has been the largest steel producing nation with this production of more than 50% of late, and the trend continues to be so in CY20 also. While China and India grew at a CAGR of 11.5% and 7% respectively, crude steel production across the rest of the world has remained broadly stagnant during this period. In last decade, India has surpassed Japan and USA to become the second largest steel producer of the world. Now, moving on to the consumption pattern. Now, as the production, steel demand has also gone through a paradigm shift from developed countries to emerging markets. The global consumption of steel has increased from 764 million ton in 2000 to 1764 million ton in 2019, with a CAGR of 4.77%, which is marginally higher than the growth in production. While there appears to be sustained growth in the overall global demand over the long term, developed markets have had limited growth potential on the back of lesser revenues for infrastructure development. However, emerging markets have exhibited substantial growth potential. For example, China has grown from with a CAGR of 12% for the period, and consumption in India has also grown with a CAGR of 7.44%. And for the rest of the world, CAGR stood at a meager 1.2%. Now, moving on to the steel capita per consumption, global steel consumption has increased from 124 kg per capita in 2000 to 229 kg per capita in 2019. As stated earlier, the developing economies have shown significant increase in consumption, which can be seen from the growth per capita steel consumption of China from 96 kg per capita to 633 kg per capita. Although at 74 kg per capita in 2019, consumption per capita consumption in India is much lower than the global average. However, several developments are expected to create a substantial demand, including the accelerated spending on infrastructure, expansion of railway network, development of domestic shipbuilding, the opening of defense sector for private participation, the anticipated growth in automobile and capital goods industry, and construction in rural and urban areas. All these developments are expected to take the per capita consumption to 158 kg by 2030, which is one of the targets of national steel policy also. Now, moving on, this is a pictorial representation of the major exporters and importers of the world, with China and Japan and South Korea and Russia at the helm of the largest exporters of the world, while developed nations like European Union, Germany, USA are the largest importers of the world. With growing consideration for sustainable production, there is an emphasis on methods of raw material sourcing, production, and waste disposal. Particularly in the European Union, producers are facing more pressure, and there is a trade-off between the imports of semi-finished products and the carbon credit. The arrow denotes the movement of raw material across the globe. Now, iron ore and coking coal are the two major ingredients for steel making, and typically it takes 1.6 tons of iron ore and zero point 0.8 ton of coking coal to produce a ton of pig iron. According to World Steel Association, it is estimated that the global steel industry used about 2 billion ton of iron ore, 1 billion ton of met coke, and 575 million ton of recycled steel to produce about 1.7 billion ton of crude steel in 2018. The country that has the largest reserves of iron ore is Australia, with 48 billion ton of crude ore reserves, having 23 billion iron ore content. Brazil is in the second position with 29 billion ton of iron ore reserves with 15 billion metric ton iron ore content. While coking coal is primarily sourced from Australia and United States, India does not have coking coal reserves and is dependent on the exports mainly from Australia. Now, talking from the Indian perspective, capacity for domestic crude steel production expanded from 90.87 million ton per annum in 2011-12 to 142.24 in 2018-19, with a CAGR of 6.8% during the 7-year period. The data for capacity for FY20 is yet to be released, and however, we assume that there hasn't been any significant capacity expansion in FY21 due to the pandemic. Although the capacity has been steadily growing, the growth in demand has not kept pace, resulting in the lower production and decline in capacity utilization of 81% in FY15 to 76% in FY20. Steel, being a capital intensive industry, lower capacity utilization creates several problems to the domestic steel players, such as increase in production cost, lower margins, and elevated debt levels. Now, the steel industry, let's talk about the steel industry in the time of pandemic. It has been quite resilient in this time. So in year 2020, we all know it has been an unprecedented year due to COVID-19 pandemic, which brought about the global economic activities to a standstill. Steel industry was no exception to the worldwide disruption caused by the pandemic and registered negative growth rates from March 20 2020 to July 2020. However, for the calendar year 2020, total steel production reported a meager decline from 1869 million ton in CY19 to 1864 million ton in CY20. The recovery was led by high growth in production by China in the backdrop of vital relief packages announced by the Chinese government to boost infrastructure. Other countries, including India, followed the trends as measures were taken to combat the economic slowdown in countries. This increased the global demand for steel, however, created a supply demand mismatch, which resulted in the surge in steel prices discussed in the next slide. So, the graph shows the variation of prices in steel, copper, and aluminum from the January 2020 prices. While the prices of copper declined before other metals, it was quick to recover as compared to steel and aluminum. While copper prices fell the most and aluminum prices fell the least, from April-May 2020, prices of copper and aluminum have increased by 77% and 42% respectively. However, the prices of steel have increased more than 97% in January 2021 from May 2020. Okay, so from January 2020 prices, the prices of copper and aluminum have increased by 34% and 15% respectively. However, the steel prices have increased by 45% in February 2021 from January 2020 prices. From October, steel prices have witnessed strong surge in prices due to increase in raw material prices and supply demand mismatch. Okay, so coming to India, the second largest steel producer, it followed a V-shaped recovery. Due to the complete lockdown in April, the production dipped to 3.29 million ton, rising to a 10.21 million ton level in December 2020. Indian steel industry was able to attain its pre-COVID levels, monthly production level by August 2020, although crude steel production in India fell by 10.60% during CY20 due to more stringent lockdown in the country. However, the domestic steel industry has witnessed significant jump in the production levels in the past 2 quarters. For the full year FY21, the crude steel production fell by just 6.16% against our earlier projection of a double-digit dip in production. During the initial quarters of FY21, subdued domestic consumption led to the increase in exports. However, as the economy opened up, the pent-up demand matched up to a monthly production. The figures which domestic steel industry reported in Q3 FY21 and Q4 FY21 are sufficient to say that the domestic steel industry has returned to normalcy and is expected to remain stable for short term. Now, as evident from the graph, the flat products recovered earlier than the long products, as the automobile industry witnessed significant growth in the backdrop of pent-up demand during June 2020 to September 2020, and it continued in Q3 FY21 on the account of festive season. Production of long products have now exceeded the flat products as the construction and real estate recovered post-monsoon from October 2020. It is expected that the demand for long products will be stable given the hefty spending announced in the budget, whereas the demand for flat products will derive traction from the consumer durable industry with the onset of summer season. Steel, structural, and railway materials have been steady but are expected to improve as the capital expenditure, which was postponed by the industries due to pandemic, is once again likely to be back on track. Now, export from the countries surged significantly during May and July 2020 due to relatively better demand from China and Vietnam, and low domestic demand amidst the lockdown in country. However, with the recovery of domestic demand led by the growth of automobile industry, the exports declined and imports gradually increased. And with the progressive unlocking of the economy and improving activities leading to a better domestic demand, resulted in a further moderation in export. Consequently, it led to increase in imports, and in recent months, the imports have exceeded export for the first time in January 2021. The concern surrounding the second wave of pandemic led to the decrease in domestic consumption of steel, resulting in the increase in export during March 2021. The spike in COVID-19 cases needs to be monitored closely as it can throw a wrench to the progressive wheel of the recovery in steel industry. Now, this slide breaks down the trend in exports by the domestic steel players. Now, where semis registered a significant increase in share of exports during Q1 FY21. During Q1 FY21, the exports of semis increased from 2.28 million ton compared to 0.49 million ton in Q1 FY20, registering an 360% increase. The semis, mainly billets, were exported to China because in China many of the furnaces had gone off production. Moreover, there was a demand for long products by Chinese producers, courtesy this infrastructure spending in China. Thereafter, finished goods also picked up, with lockdown continuing in many competitor countries. Export of finished steel products were led by the hot rolled coils, which increased from 2.41 million ton in Q1 FY21 from 0.62 million ton in Q1 FY20, registering an increase of 286%. The export of HR coil was made to China, followed by Vietnam and UAE. Post Q1 FY21, the exports have decreased as the domestic demand has gained sufficient traction. Now I would like to request Ajay to carry on the presentation from here.
Ajay, I think you are on mute.
Sorry. Thank you, Ankur and Debal. It was observed that the integrated and semi-integrated players reported substantially lower decrease in their production as compared to the smaller and non-integrated players in Q1 FY20 at the time of lockdown, as we can see from the graph. The same was because of the limited diversification in their product profile and the lack of financial flexibility for the small players. As the domestic demand recovered from Q3 and the prices of steel soared, the non-integrated players also recovered and have returned to the near normalcy situation. Non-integrated players reported significant decrease in sales also during Q1 as compared to the integrated players, as they had enough liquidity to recover the faster and capture the demand from the export markets, whereas the non-integrated and small players doesn't have that flexibility. However, as I mentioned, the demand recovery showed signs of a recovery during Q2, and from Q3, even the non-integrated players have been able to report increase in the sales. So if you see the graphs, Q2 integrated players have reported the significant increase in sales, whereas the non-integrated players remain in the negative territory. However, from Q3, even the smaller players have reported substantial growth in the sales, whereas the integrated player could not report further growth in the sales because of the lower inventory levels. In coherence to the recovering demand for the flats over long products, the prices also recovered for flats before longs. The prices of HR coils increased by nearly 57% to around 50,700 rupees per ton in January from lows of 35,400 per ton in June 2020, while the prices of TMT bars also increased by around 50% in January 2021 from July 2020 levels. After some moderation in the Feb March, the prices have again shot up in late March and April to nearly 58,000 rupees per ton for the HRC coils now. The rise in the steel prices are in coherence with the global steel prices, but have created the concerns to the end user industries like automobile and infrastructure. The factors which are driving the steel prices globally are robust Chinese demand, which continues to be firm, huge restocking demand post COVID-19 unlocks, faster than expected recovery in the demand from end user industries, and exorbitantly high raw material prices, especially the iron ore and scrap. The prices are expected to remain at the elevated levels for the short term at least, as none of these factors seems to be moderating. Now, if we talk about the raw material prices, the prices of coking coal remained low throughout FY21 due to lower demand of coking coal by China, as Chinese producer had significant inventory of coking coal. Further, the informal ban on Australian coking coal by China meant the coking coal prices dropped significantly, as the largest coking coal exporter found a relatively less global demand. This has fared better for the domestic steel producer in India, which are wholly dependent on the imports. During January 2021, sentiments around a possible supply shortage due to cyclones in Australia affected the supply, and there was a spike in the coking coal prices, but the same has again come down to the lower levels in March 2021. On the other hand, if you see the iron ore prices have risen from around $80 per ton in April 2020 to USD 170 rupees per ton USD 170 per ton in January 2021. This is a level last seen in 2011. So the prices are at around decade high, and it has remained elevated after that also. The price hike is fueled by strong Chinese demand and supply disruptions in Brazil. China's September sales were higher by around 10%. And for the full year, calendar year 2020, China has reported higher steel production by 5% despite the COVID-19. Higher realizations prompted Indian miners to export iron ore and pellets. Exports have moderated in Q2 with the increase in the demand from the domestic steel sector and rise in the domestic prices due to the non-operation of the 14 mines in Odisha, leading to severe supply crunch. Amidst better Chinese demand and tepid supply due to severe weather conditions and COVID-induced restrictions in Brazil, iron ore prices are expected to remain at the elevated level at least in the short term. Now coming to the budget impact on the steel industry, in the budget announced on February 1, 2021, the Finance Minister announced a number of infrastructure projects and has increased the outlay on the capital expenditure, which are likely to strengthen the steel demand in the medium term. From capex augmentation in railways, metro rail projects to vehicle scrappage policy, these are likely to benefit both primary and secondary steel producers. Further, the demand from the transportation sector from the government extensive thrust towards infrastructure like the Bharatmala project, dedicated freight corridor are expected to boost the demand for steel. In medium term, domestic steel pipe manufacturers are also likely to benefit from Jal Jeevan Mission, which has received the allocation of 2.87 lakh crore, and from proposed extension of the city gas distribution projects. The Finance Minister has also announced revocation of anti-dumping duties and countervailing duties on stainless steel products and slashed custom duties on non-alloy steel products to 7.5% across the category. While the stainless steel industry may be adversely impacted by this step, it may have a very little implication on the non-alloy steel, since the import of non-alloy steel takes place majorly from the nations with whom the country has free trade agreements, and these imports enjoy zero import duty. However, the reduction in custom duty is likely to benefit the end user industry in MSME sector specifically, which was under stress due to the rising prices of steel. The reduction of custom duty on the scrap is expected to lower the prices of raw materials, which in turn is expected to marginally reduce the production cost for the secondary steel players who use scrap for the furnaces. Now, if we talk about the future demand supply scenario, industry has gone through a consolidation phase over the last 2 years. Many stressed assets like Bhushan Steel, Bhushan Power and Steel, SR Steel, Monnet Ispat and SR Steel got acquired by the large and dominant players under the IBC route. And not many expansions have been announced in the last few years. So India might face slower capacity addition in the short to medium term as compared to the demand. A few notable expansions which are getting completed in near future are JSW's Dolvi expansion plant of 5 million ton and NMDC's greenfield plant of 3 million ton. Apart from the above capacities, ramp up of the capacities from the acquired stressed assets like SR, Bhushan Power and Steel would be adding to the supplies of steel. Resultantly, the capacity utilization rates are expected to move back toward 80% or above in the medium term, which we had seen last time in FY15. So from FY16 to FY21, the capacity utilization rate of the industry has remained below 80% for last 5 years. Any slower than expected ramp up from the fresh capacities may keep the demand supply equation in the favor of demand, which will keep the prices firm. Another issue which works in favor of the demand side is the low capacity utilization from the small players and the non-integrated players, especially in the long products category, which operate in the regionalized markets. While large players have regained the high capacity utilization rates after COVID, smaller players who operate at low capacity historically also are taking a lot of time to optimize their utilization rates. Coming to the outlook for the industry, an upcycle in the international steel prices is expected to continue in FY20 also due to increased steel consumption by China on the back of stimulus package unveiled by the Chinese government, which is keeping the demand for the metal high. Firm international prices and pickup in domestic demand will also support the domestic steel prices. Domestic steel prices have already exceeded by more than 47%, while export prices have increased by 53% from the February 20 levels. Further, any sustainable rebound in the coking coal prices in the backdrop of expectation of supply shortage will keep the steel prices firm. Domestic steel production and consumption is expected to remain steady going forward at Q1 FY22. For the whole year FY21, we had expected that the crude steel production would be lower by more than double digit. However, it has turned out much better than that, and it reduced only by 7%. Consumption also was expected to be lower by more than 10% earlier and 8% by the as per the revised estimates, but eventually it has come much lower at 5.5% decline as compared to FY20 levels. While large players have reported faster return to the normalcy after COVID-19 impact, the recovery by the smaller players has been slow due to their limited diversification and weaker finances. However, with the removal of duty on scrap and the removal by the government to procure the steel for the government contracts only from the large players, these steps are likely to benefit the smaller players also. Overall, we expect that the rating and outlook of the CARE rated players will remain steady with a mildly positive bias amid a stable industry outlook. This is the rating dispersion of CARE rated entities. We have nearly 212 rating outstanding. None of them is in AAA category. We have 16 ratings in AA category, which are primarily the large integrated steel players and some of the companies which are into the manufacturing of iron and steel pipes. Then we have 25 ratings in A category, which are large to medium size steel players having strong balance sheets, whereas we have around 70 companies in the BBB category, which are basically small to mid rolling mills having decent balance sheets. And then we have 76 companies in BB category, which are primarily very small players having weaker financials. In terms of rating actions during FY21 full year, the rating action remained broadly balanced in the favor of downgrades and upgrades. We had 22 downgrades vis-a-vis 22 upgrades. However, there were certain revision in the outlooks to negative. 9 outlooks were revised to negative, initially because of the stress on the industry demand and the prices. But beyond that, the rating actions have broadly remained balanced in favor of upgrades and downgrades. Thank you. Now I hand it over back to Debal.
Yeah, many thanks, Ajay. I would now turn to our distinguished guest speaker, Mr. Sharma, for his insights on some of our industry-related questions, after which we can take questions from the participants as well. Sir, my first question to you, as the representative of the Indian steel industry, would be in terms of sharing the experience of the industry during the pandemic, and what kind of inferences we can draw regarding the competitiveness in some areas of the Indian steel industry and lack of it in some areas, and what are the learnings for the future, if any? Because this is relevant not only since we are entering a second and arguably more disruptive wave of the pandemic, but also in the long run, where we have kind of set an aim for 300 million ton by 2030, and we have to make it a viable proposition.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my privilege to speak to all of you through this portal. My views follows agenda. Number one, basically the steel is a commodity which is not required only by mankind, but this is required by the universe. How is it? Basically, sometimes we speak that per capita consumption of a particular country is 60 kg, 80 kg, 400 kg, 600 kg. Now, this is something different than the reality. What is the reality? Reality is that the consumption of steel per capita, basically, this is a wrong measurement. Why it is a wrong measurement? It depends upon the spending by government of particular country which give an impetus to the steel industry or steel consumption. It is not people. As a human being, we consume maybe 10, 15, 20 tons steel in our lifespan. And if you have a family of 4 or 5, then you will not spend more, you will not consume more than 20 metric ton steel in your lifespan. Maybe 3 or 4 cars, maybe 2, 3, 4 refrigerators, 2, 3 washing machines in lifespan, and so on and so on. A small flat or a big villa, I mean, that is not going to consume too much of steel for a family of 5 to 7 people. So where the steel goes, rightly shown by our colleagues during this presentation from Mitra. So the overall the presentation by CARE Rating shows that how the V-shaped recovery has been demonstrated by China, and how the V-shaped recovery has been demonstrated by Government of India. So this, if you see in the month of November, December 2019, and then January, February 2020, China was at a level about 65 million ton production per month. And finally, they picked up in the month of end of March, April, they reached to 85 million ton, and then finally 95 to 100 million ton. In calendar year, China produced 1050 million ton production, and almost it was a domestic consumption because they hardly exported anything except for about 30 to 35 million ton. India in the same calendar year, we produced only 99.6 million ton, which was too low as against of China, number one. Number two, this was also too low against our capacity which is already installed in the country. We have a capacity of 140 million ton which is already installed, but unfortunately we are hovering around 105, 110 million ton production, which is too less a production. This does not mean that the per capita consumption in India is less than the world economies. This directly reflects on the Indian government spending on steel or on infrastructure. Basically, as rightly said, depicted in your presentation by CARE, that Mr. Nirmala Satyaraman C declared that okay, 1 lakh crore will be spent through Indian Railway. We'll be connecting the water pipelines. We'll be spending a lot of money on the highways and national infrastructure. Put together 20 lakh crore of stimulus packages. So all these things plays very vital role in life when we see that what is the steel or cement consumption going to be. So here, if you see China, India, and Europe and America. So let us compare 4 different economies in the world. First of all, these 4 countries in the world, they have declared stimulus package of more than $10 trillion. Put together in the whole world, the total stimulus package is declared by different nations, different countries, and different governments. If you see cumulatively, then it is more than $17 trillion. So this $17 trillion, when it is coming into the market for this spending in next 1.5 year time, that means a lot of or substantial money will flow to the steel industry, maybe at least $5 trillion or $7 trillion, and another 2, 3, 4 trillion dollars for the building industry and for the other infrastructure giants. So, but the major chunk comes to the steel, and then it is followed by other building industry and the other construction industry. So now, when we compare the industry growth vis-a-vis the per capita income, so this becomes a little abnormal ratio that what is our per capita consumption. So our per capita consumption, if we spend 30 lakh crore rupees in next 3 years time, and out of that 10 lakh crore comes to steel industry, that means we can cross 100 kg immediately. The another point which is very vital to mention here is that our Government of India, Ministry of Steel, has projected that we'll be producing 300 million ton steel by 2030, and that is necessity also, though it will be much less than the American steel, Chinese steel consumption as of now, which is about 1.11 billion ton, and we are reaching in 2030, that is 300 million tons. So we are way behind than the Chinese government spending. So here, why I'm using the government spending, because as an individual, as a person, whether he is Indian, he or she is Indian, or he or she is Chinese, our purchasing power is almost same. So we can do whatever they can do, we can do. And many of the places we find that our purchasing power is higher than a common Chinese person. But why their steel production is higher? Two reasons. One, the government is spending day in, day night on infrastructure. And number two, they are in a big way in capital goods manufacturing industry. So India is lacking in both. One, capital goods we do not produce. Number two, our spending from the government side is very less. So it is only first time that government of India has given a thrust on the basic infrastructure, be it roads, be it rails, be it airports, be it any other infrastructure, including water pipelines. Government has given a full focus on that. And this is the reason in last 6 to 8 months time, we are seeing that the steel consumption in India is increasing. Now, as far as the price trend is concerned, when the different governments are going to spend more than $17 trillion in infrastructure, basically, that means the consumption of each and everything will increase. It is not only steel, be it steel, aluminum, copper, motors, electrical, transformers, building material, tiles, ceramic tiles, and anything, plywood. The entire world will be in a different game, because unfortunately, I'm using this word unfortunately, all of this money is coming at a time. Had it been coming, say, about $3 to $4 trillion a year, and next 5-6 years time, then it would have got some cooling period. But now each government wants to spend this money, and they want that whatever the hidden losses or whatever the losses incurred by their industry, MSMEs, major industries, those should be recovered. So this is what we called, and what Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman told about 6 months back, that this is a pent-up demand. So one is pent-up demand, the other is the true demand. And this has what led to the metals, mining, steel industry to come in a different way. In steel industry, usually it is treated as cyclical industry, that there is always a cycle, 6 months, 8 months, 1 year, 2 year cycle, and after that it has to go down. But I'm sure next 2 to 3 years, it will not go down. This will continue like this. And for India, the growth story is for next 10 years. Today morning report by WSA is they are contemplating that more than 19% growth in steel industry is likely to be there in Indian scenario. So if this happens, 19% or 20% growth, that means 20 million additional steel. What will happen next year? Whereas the world average will be about 6.5%, and Indian growth about 19%. That makes the difference. This means there is a lot of potential in India, and that potential, how it has erupted. So this eruption of how it has erupted. So this eruption of this potential has come through the government spending. It is not a personal public spending. It's a government spending. So 1.7 million ton of rails Indian Railway is going to buy. 1.2 million ton of steel Indian Railway is going to buy in the form of bridges, plates, and track electrification. You can imagine. Then put together, if you see that more than 3 million ton pipelines are going to come in the country. There is water pipeline, so that from major rivers to the towns, districts, villages, the drinking and potable water can be made available. So if such kind of infrastructure focus is maintained by any government, then definitely there will be growth in steel sector, metallurgy sector, mining sector, as well as some other metals like zinc, which is very vital, especially for the galvanizing, and also the items like copper. The moment we start thinking on capital equipment building, where Government of India is having a great focus, and they always say that the capital goods industry must come in the country. We in JSPL, we already installed a capital steel plant manufacturing company in Raipur, and we know that what are the advantages today having such kind of facility. So the moment we go for the capital goods manufacturing, that means more and more aluminum and more copper will be consumed in the country, and finally the metals will shine. So this is what going to happen in times to come. So the next 3 years of story is known to us. next 3 years of picture, the vision is very much clear. Rightly said, rightly depicted by CARE, that how the V-shaped recovery took place post-pandemic. I have been talking to media during the April last year that in the demand will outstrip the production post-lockdown. This I declared this in an interview with Mint on 10th of April, and today on 15th of April, it is written in the newspaper today in the Economic Times that Indian growth likely to be 19.6%, and this is how the difference is. So what do I mean, and where I'm leading all of you in this particular discussion, that in next couple of years are going to be super for the metal and mining industry, steel industry in India, number one. Number two, the steel production will definitely grow. Maybe next year it is 19%. After that, it will be a big problem. What is that? By 2025, we need around additional 100 million ton steel if we have to restrict imports. By 2028, another 150 million ton steel, and by 2030, that is 160 or 170 million ton, or maybe 200 million ton steel. Today our production is only 100 million ton steel, and we want to reach by 2030 to 300 million ton steel. So if you take a step one, that is in 2025, then 2028, and then 2030, then we are short of production. The steel plants usually take about 4 to 5 years to commence the steel melting. And any blast furnace, any electric arc furnace, today if we start, we conceive the project and we start a particular project, it will take minimum 5 years to complete the project. So in 2021, today, unfortunately, India does not have any plant on annual. India does not have any plant which is where the groundbreaking ceremony has been done, and this will be in operation by 2025. Because last 4 or 5 years time, it was extremely bad for the Indian steel industry and bankers. The lenders were thinking, they were having a very negative outlook on steel, and the steel industry was also dying down. So many plants, they closed down, and finally only 5 big plants are surviving today. One is, I'm telling you, JSPL, my company. The other is JSW, Tata Steel, and then ArcelorMittal. Now it is taken over. SR has taken over. SR has been taken over by ArcelorMittal and Steel Authority of India. So these are the plants which are 5 million ton club. The another plant is RANL, which because of their own reasons they are not coming up to the level of 7.5 million ton, which they can. And NMDC plant, they started in 2012 or 2013. That was the construction started, but unfortunately so far this has not been commissioned, this has not been installed fully. So this means what is going to happen in 2025? In 2025, India will be importing 80 million to 100 million ton steel, and in 2028 India will be importing about 150 million ton steel if the projects are not taking place today. So the question here is, we wrote to Madam Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman. She declared that on greenfield projects, the Indian government is giving some relaxation in the income tax or the corporate tax from 25% to 15%. Net it is coming to 17%. So it is the net gain is about 8%. So that is for the greenfield. And in that case, the project has to start with production by 23rd of March 2023, so which is unlikely to happen. So what we are requesting to Government of India, either you scrap this particular scheme because this is not going to help the steel industry, or to allow this scheme to the brownfield projects. Today, 5 brownfield projects, if we start, JSPL, JSW, Steel Authority of India, ArcelorMittal, and let us include the number 6 RANL also. If all 6 plants, those who are above 3 million ton or 4 million ton capacity, if we add or we double our capacities, then we produce today 55 million ton together, we will reach in 2027 to 110 million ton. The smaller plants in secondary sector, they produce about 40 million ton. If they also grow, they can reach about 60 million ton. So this means 110 million ton plus 60 million ton, that is 170 million ton by 2027 or 2028. Still, India will be importing steel. If not, that means the outlook is very pessimistic. That means government spending is not going to take place. But this is a point of no U-turn. Government has to spend. Though in absolute numbers, steel industry is a part of GDP, say 2 or 2.5%. But if you see the cascading effect and the value addition from steel industry to the component industry to the pipe industry to the automobile industry, finally where the steel is a base, then this is 27%. And this is where the catch is. It is not 2.5%. It is 27%. And manufacturing as a whole in the country or in anywhere in the world is more than 70%. So it's sometimes we are in a big myth that manufacturing is only 22% and the services are another 25 to 30%, and agro-based economy is about 23%. That is not the right way of calculating it. We have to calculate that yes, without manufacturing, neither any IT industry is required nor banking is required. No rating industries are required. Without manufacturing, nothing is required. So manufacturing has to be given an impetus. So in nutshell, I'll close my comments on 2 points. One, India has to grow. Number two, Indian steel industry must add capacities now. Otherwise, it will be too late. Number three, if India does not start brownfield or greenfield expansions, then India will be importing at least 80 million to 100 million ton steel in 2025. So you can imagine, can any country spend $75 billion in importing steel? Impossible. That means there'll be overall crisis in the country. So whether it is rating agencies or the bankers, everybody will have to align with the government that yes, steel is the future, and we have to build more and more steel plants to build the nation as China has done it. So thanks from my side. In case of any question, I'm ready to reply you.
No, sir. Thanks for that excellent insight, and also pointing out the fallacy in taking this per capita consumption as a metric, which we obviously do. And also, I think what you're saying is very right, that the stimulus packages are actually a one-off kind of an event, and if these could have been kind of spread out in some way, and actually they would have crystallized as demand drivers for obviously the steel industry and other industries. But still, there also lies the question that when we talk about the principal driver, as you rightly said, that the government spending in infrastructure, and if you look at this national infrastructure pipeline, for example, which has come or which has been brought out, and the outlay is something like 110 lakh crores, and so these numbers are very fine, but when we try to put a finger on say a CAGR or a very reasonable CAGR on any industry, and definitely on steel industry, these numbers come to mind as to or the achievability of these numbers, because how are they going to be financed? Because governments at both the center and states are quite cash strapped, and also in terms of private sector coming in, we know, I mean, they need equity, and there's the limitations of leveraging all this especially infrastructure sector, which is supposedly supposed to be a public good. So just what, realistically speaking, what do you think is a realistic CAGR for the steel industry, given the significant drivers that we have, and obviously the steel industry is always ready to follow suit in terms of enhancement of capacities, but unless these drivers are there and are brought on the ground, which needs financing. So what do you think is your perspective on a very reasonable growth rate?
We are a part of now global economy. Like America is now consuming day in, day night. Directly, more than $4 trillion they are spending on basic infrastructure and to meet out the industry's requirement. So is China. China is reaching, though the exact data sometimes is doubtful, but China, I think they are spending more than $6 trillion. So Indian government has declared earlier 20 lakh crore and then another 10 lakh crore, so total 30 lakh crore rupees. Similarly, European Union has declared already $5 trillion in terms of stimulus packages. So all these things, when we see, then we become a global economy. And the steel industry also become a global steel industry. Today, China is consuming steel within China. They hardly export any steel. And their virtual markets, those who are being fed by China, are now being fed by India, by Russians, and by Iranians. So this means we have a ready market till China does not come into the market. First. Number two, what happens if China comes in the market? Can we beat China? Yes. We have seen in last 1 year, 1.5 year time, that we can meet out the price expectations of Chinese buyers in China from India. We have competed with Iranians. We have done competition with Russians and Ukrainians. So this shows that Indian steel industry is competitive enough to meet out the customers' price expectations. Today, I'm glad to tell you that Indian steel prices in India are at least $200 a ton lower than what we export. We are exporting hot rolled coil plates to Europe at $1,000 FOB, whereas the Indian price is $60. 60% we are selling within country and 40% we are exporting. So why we are doing so? So that number one, we can maintain our domestic long-term customers. They don't suffer, and we can also get the benefit of spot markets in the international level. So American prices today, hot rolled coil is $1,350 to $1,400 per ton. And European prices landed there is $1,060 to $1,070. Chinese prices in China is $990 to $1,000. In Korea, the prices are about $950. Indian prices are $800. So this shows the strength of the Indian steel industry. Now I'm talking as a steel industry professional, and this is where the difference is. We are opportunists today that to increase the prices to a level which becomes unaffordable. Ultimately, if the customer dies, then we die first. So we have to see that the customer affords the prices. Number one. Number two, we also see that imports do not happen in the country. With $200 of delta, nobody can import steel in the country. So we are meeting out with a complete balance, 60% of our domestic customers in terms of quantity and 40% exports. Everybody is exporting today and earning the fortune. So this is the best time for the Indian steel industry to export and to earn revenue for the nation and revenue for the country. Now, coming back on the next point. When there is a positivity in the market, your point for the fundraising, how the funds will come. So when the positivity comes, you will find a lot of FIIs, they start investing in equity, in mutual funds, in debt market, and many more instruments. And this is what happening with $590 to $600 billion of reserves Government of India is having, RBI is having today, which is likely to touch $700 billion by end of May, as per the expectations, because the stock market is doing a wonderful job, and the equity people, they have come to the market that, okay, yes, we want to spend in India. If this comes to 700 billion reserves, that means there's no dearth of funds for any critical projects, number one. Number two, with 1,24,000 crore of GST collection last month, which is likely to maintain maybe at 1,25,000 crore or maybe 1,30,000 crore, barring a small dip today because of the COVID spread in Maharashtra and some other part of the country. But you know, this is not a small number. So where this money will go? This money is going to be utilized in the nation's growth. So whatever the planning, the financial planning Government of India has done, or the Niti Aayog has done, or the Prime Minister Office has done, that is wonderful. If it goes very well, according to the PMO and according to the finance minister, then I think there are no dearth of funds. So 20 lakh crore or 30 lakh crore, making arrangement of this over a period of time of 3 to 4 years will not be a big deal, because country is having a potential of 20 lakh crore GST collection each year. And if it happens, then there are no dearth of funds. If the country can attract 5 lakh crore in terms of FII investments in the country, so it is 25 lakh crore. And fortunately, borders are cooled down. Both the borders, Pakistan border or China border, is now is in cold box. Everything is settled, I feel so, and let us pray that things should remain cool and calm. So the spending on arms and armaments will be very strategic and will not be a crisis purchase. So this shows that the country will grow. The type of weather conditions, the monsoon, and the agriculture, what is happening in the country, that is a good sign. I'm sure country is having 20 lakh, 25 lakh crore rupees to spend for the nation. Let us pray that this COVID 21, I would say, it is no more 19. So COVID 21 does not affect the country and does not affect the economy. So funds are not in short supply. The only thing, there was no will, but there is a will now. The Corona, COVID has also brought the attention of Government of India that nothing will move unless we do this spending. From $320 billion to $600 billion during COVID time, the Indian reserves have gone up. So this shows a very solid commitment by Government of India to the rest of the world from where the money is flowing. So I'm very bullish on this.
Right, great. So one more question is regarding, when we talk about China now, it has remained the primary driver for global steel dynamics and a determinant of the prices and the margins. But recently we have seen that it has led a lot of initiatives to stabilize its growth and to deleverage and also decarbonize its economy. For example, it has been clamping down on these Tangshan's blast furnace and converters, capping the utilization rates and all that. So, do we see that this is something of a opportunity for India, because obviously, it kind of moves out of certain markets where Indian exports can move into, and do we see that as a great opportunity going forward?
You see, China is a world economy. Nobody can ignore China. China, by far, they are much better than the rest of the world, I would say. America, we say it is $22 trillion economy. Yes, correct. It is $22 trillion economy, but it is not a manufacturing economy. There's a big difference. China, I will say $13 trillion economy, but it's in manufacturing technology. So they have two good things with them, and what we also have. One is they are $13 trillion of manufacturing economy. America is having more than $21 trillion, but there is not manufacturing. Manufacturing is only 4 trillion. So this is where the difference is. So Chinese consumption can never be stopped. Now, number two, China has no option to take a U-turn with having 1.5 billion people. They can't afford it. The second point is coming India. In India, we must follow the Chinese way. Chinese have done a wonderful achievement in last 1 or 2 decades time. They have become the world's workshop. India has to become the second world's workshop. The time will come. Government of India is giving full thrust on becoming world's workshop. This will take 1 decade. This cannot be done overnight. This needs dedicated and experienced manpower. This needs a great shift in the policies. This needs a great shift in the land acquisition. This needs a great shift in overall labor reforms. If we do this, then we can also become a second largest world workshop. We cannot become first largest workshop because they have taken 30 years, 3 decades. They started doing it 1990. and it is now 2020. We are starting in 2021. At least we will take another 15 years. So it will be 2035. And for that only, the paper made by Government of India and Niti Aayog that we had to reach to 300 million ton steel, that is correct. So 300 million ton steel with more than 6 lakh gigawatt of electricity. This is what we have to do. We in a developed, if you see, we see the G7 group or G12 group. We are the lowest power consumer in the world out of G20 group, I would say. So our power consumption is only 1,000 unit per person per year, whereas China has reached to 3 times of us, that is 3,500. America is 10,000. So this is what we have to do. So power, steel, they have to go together, and then finally cement. Under the Purvodaya scheme, Government of India is declaring that we will be producing about 100 million ton steel in the 6 eastern state of India. That is correct. The 6 eastern state of India, if we produce 100 million ton steel, this means we can produce 300 million ton of cement also. Today, our total production of cement is 300 million ton. We have to reach to 1 billion ton cement manufacturing to pick up the pace, otherwise we'll be left behind. So whatever policies today Niti Aayog or Planning Commission, Rest Oil Planning Commission or Government of India and Prime Minister Office, whatever they are formulating today, this is going to impact the future of this nation. So far, so good. I feel personally, professionally, that Indian government is in the right direction. They are thinking rightly. So your point that if the Tanshan area or some of the blast furnaces are closed or something happens, whether happens or does not happen, okay, we don't have today selling problem. Our problem, our theory of constraints is not on sales. Our theory of constraints is production. Indian constraint today is production of steel, not selling steel. We can sell steel as much as we have. There are no issues, but the production is limited. As I told you, JSPL started the first foundation stone in 2005 in Ankur. We came into production in 2013. Tata Steel Kalinganagar, they started somewhere in 2003. They also came in 2013 or 14. Bhushan Steel, Bhushan 1, which is now Tata Steel, they started in 2002. They came into production in 2013. Bhushan Power and Steel, they started in 2003. Now it is JSW, and they came into production in 2012. This means small or big, it takes 8-9 years time. If the money is in free supply, then maybe 8 years time, but it cannot be 6 years or 2 years or 1 year. We are already late. My message to Government of India, my message to all professionals, please start expanding now. We must go for expansions, not only in the interest of any individual company, but in the interest of nation. Otherwise, it will be too late. Country cannot afford $70-75 billion of import. Already we import $50 billion of gold and $70-80 billion of oil, and another $75 billion of steel will be a disaster for this nation. It's better to spend this $75 billion in expansions and bring more and more steel plants in the country. Be it greenfield, be it brownfield, that does not matter. But nation needs steel, and it needs very urgently. As far as sales is concerned, not one can always sell. So Chinese production, Chinese environmental issues, Chinese CO2 emission policies, neither this will help India, nor this will be detrimental to India. China is an economy which is working at their own. We are an economy which is emerging now. This is what we have to maintain.
Right, sir. Thanks. My last question from my side, at least, is obviously we when we talk about steel, the accompanying commodities that we talk about are iron ore and coking coal, because it is in the operating margins, or as we look at the EBITDA per ton. So how do you think these raw materials going from here? Iron ore prices have been going up very sharply, and which has also kind of prodded steel prices to rise. On the other hand, coking coal has remained subdued, and very lately has probably showed some divergent trend between Chinese and non-Chinese demand, where the prices have been slightly different. So going forward in the near future, at least, how do you see these going forward, the raw material price?
Yeah, you're right. See, look, China has shown and demonstrated that they are a very strong economy in the world. They can stop import of coking coal from Australia, and they can start import of semi-finished goods from the rest of the world. It's a very smart move, I would tell you. The coking coal used to be on an average $160 to $180 per ton FOB, and sometimes $200 per ton FOB. So what Chinese have done? They stopped buying from Australia because of diplomatic reasons or political reasons. But how it has affected them positively? They started importing slabs, billets, TMT, rebars, hot rolled coils from the rest of the world because coking coal is at its lowest. So, there are ways, very, very diplomatic move China has played. And they wanted to show to the world, and especially to Australia, that we can survive without you. And they have shown. This is one. Number two, they have also won the goodwill of the exporting countries, those who are exporting to China, because all of them are earning their livelihood or earning a good foreign exchange supplying to China. So that is second move, what China has done. Now the coming back on the iron ore or any other requirement. Look, after 2050, the world will not need iron ore. And after 2050, and maybe a little earlier, the world will not need any thermal coal. So the composite materials are under development, and the virgin steel from iron ore will be limited. One data I would like to share with you, that today the world is producing, as CARE rating has shown, that 1,750 million ton steel, and out of that some 1,050 or 1,100 million ton steel is produced only by China. That's correct. But why China is consuming this much of steel? We have to see that. There is a ratio which is called infrastructure to usage ratio. Today, the Chinese infrastructure to use by its people is just 37%. Europe, it is 21%. America, it is 17%. India, it is 180%. Sometimes it is 200%. The countries in Africa, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Southeast Asia, it is more than 200%. This means the moment Chinese infrastructure versus usage, despite of so much of population, will come down below 30, they will stop or they will reduce the spending on infrastructure, as America has done, as Europe has done. Point number two, the countries like China and the countries like Korea, they have done a total population stabilization. In fact, Korea has come down from 6% growth on population to 0.4% growth. Europe has already witnessed the negative growth. America has already witnessed the negative growth in the new birth, new babies. This means the world 7.3 or 7.4 billion people are not going to increase, whereas infrastructure is increasing. When this infrastructure is increasing, a day will come, maybe in 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, that respective countries will not spend on infrastructure, and the infrastructure spending will be limited to Africa, some of the Southeast Asian countries, India, and Middle East, which is very less because the population is very less. So now, who will use this iron ore, and who will use the coal? Already the whole world is against coal, and people say that the coal is the villain and coal is the wrong economy. Though everybody or the developed world, they have built their nation by consuming coal, be it America, be it UK, be it Germany, be it South Africa, be it Australia, and be it Russia or China now. Everybody is consuming steel day as consuming coal day in day night, or they have consumed coal. So unless the coal to hydrogen technology comes, this coal will not be utilized. So neither the coal nor the iron ore is required after 2050. Why it is not required? Today, the steel production is 1750 million ton. This will reach to 2200 million ton by 2026. And after that, this will come down again to 1200 million ton in a year. When it is 1200 million ton in a year, means we need about 1 billion ton of scrap, which is to be processed, recycled, and another 200 or 250 million ton from the virgin material, that is from the iron ore. World will be having the iron ore for next 200 years, and people will not use it. Please mind my language. This is a recorded message. Maybe after 20 years or 25 years, the CARE people will show to the next generation that there was somebody who was telling that world will not require iron ore after 2050. And so is the coal. So the steel production will reach to 2200 million ton, will come down to 1200 million ton, because when the infrastructure and uses, they satisfy each other. Number two, composite material. The composite materials are coming in a very, very faster way. I think in next 10-15 years, the composite material will replace a lot of steel items, except for the high-rise buildings maybe. So these are going to happen. Already in railways, they have gone to aluminium, not steel. Already so many other areas, the composite fiber has come. Car bodies of composite fiber has come. Scooters, motorcycles, you are seeing all composite fiber. It's already come in the market. So in next 10-15 years time, the composite fiber, composite material will take place of iron ore. So the iron ore prices today, what we are seeing in last 1 year time, it has reached to 300%, maybe from 2000 rupees to 7000 rupees a ton or 8000 rupees a ton. It does not matter. What matters most? What will happen to this iron ore after 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the line? So the iron ore prices will not go up. $170 per ton is the price today, CFR China. This will remain in the same range next 2 years. Coking coal prices will also be similar, maybe $120, $130 per ton, very stable. What is going to increase? The increase will be all other commodities, including food, including general consumables, all other commodities, the prices will increase, inflation will increase. One question I did not reply you, that what will be the true growth in steel industry. People say 12%, 14%, somebody 4%, but I feel that 7 to 8% YOY growth will be there in India. And finally, in the world average will remain 5 to 6%. It cannot be 20%, and it cannot be 30%. So this is how we have to do it.
Right, sir. Many thanks. That's from my side. Ajay, can you take some questions in the Q&A session from the participants if they have posted some questions?
Yes, thanks, Debal. Mr. Sharma, if you can briefly take some questions from the audience. First question is there from Ms. Ayushi. It's a very relevant and pertinent question in the current scenario. She is asking, with the spike in the COVID cases and cities begin to see the exodus of migrant laborers, it is going to create a labor shortage. So what are the consequences of this on the steel industry?
The point is very valid, Ayushi, and this is area of concern because people are not moving to their villages or to their hometowns because of COVID, but more because of rumors. And this is what happened last year. So we have not learned the lesson in 1 year time. The point number two, last year we were not educated enough and we didn't have the resources. But today we have good weaponry. We have hospitals available, we have oxygen available, we have masks available, we have some of the medicines available, and we have vaccine available. So there is, of course, there is a fear, but it should not be converted into panic. We all means all responsible citizens of this country must give a cool word to the countrymen that nothing is going to be worst. Everything will be controlled. Government is working very seriously on this. Lockdown is not a solution. Today morning, I had a meeting with one of the ministry where I told that what is the fun in doing the night lockdown or night curfew, because people are already at the home. So who spreads the virus at night? Rather, we should have more 24/7 stores. We should have more 24/7 malls. We should operate in shifts. The government department should work in night shift. The school should run in the day shift. The even and odd numbers should be for day and night and not for Monday or Tuesday. So this is where the difference is. When the factories can run at night, when the IT companies can work at night, when the BPOs can work in night, why can't government office can work night? They should also work in night. The moment government of India takes a decision, it is a decision which they have to take. Then I think we reduce the population by half on the streets, and we can control the pandemic. And this is what the time will come that one day or sooner or later, if the pandemic spreads, and the offices are required to be open at night, not in the day hours. But nothing to worry. I mean, whatever a lakh of people or 2 lakh people, they move out, don't worry about that. Things will be controlled because we are more educated now. We are more equipped now. We are more informed now. We are not ignorant now. So I'm not worried about it. Things will be under control very soon, for sure.
Sure, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, then there are some questions on per ton consumption of iron ore and coking coal to produce 1 ton of steel that we have already covered. That question was from Radhika Lohia. Then we have a question from Kumar Singh. With the rising domestic consumption, will steel prices also continue to grow? That we have covered already. There is a question from Pranati. She is asking, can you give some color on grain steel, its current capacity, expected capacity, and outlook, current companies in this area, etc. So this looks a little different question. Can you take that?
Yeah, please carry on. Yeah, please complete the question. Green steel one, then next.
Grain steel, sir. She is asking how much is the capacity currently, expected capacity, outlook, current companies in this area.
I will tell you. You see, the green is a concept which has been caught up by everybody. But to be very honest with you, there is nothing green in the world. Yes, what can happen? Less pollutant, higher pollutants, or no pollutants. But there are no pollutants, plants will not be there. You still have, you can always ensure that I have a zero liquid discharge, zero ZLD, but something is being processed somewhere. This is a natural process, mankind. Sometimes we feel that CO2 is very bad, but up to a limit CO2 is required. If CO2 does not come in the universe, then there will be no greenery. The point here is what is green and what is not green. You see, there is nothing green. The only difference is per ton emission one company is having 20 ton of CO2, the another company is having 18 ton, another company is having 30 ton. The solution to the world is different, and solution to India is also different. First of all, India must be a nuclear powerhouse. Solar is not the solution. Solar is going to be a big problem in times to come, because most of the fertile land will be consumed by the solar panels. Number one. Number two, the installation of solar today looks very easy, but maintenance and replacement is going to create a havoc. After 10 years, we'll come to know. So for the green solution, there is only one solution available, that is to go for nuclear powerhouses. That is, I would say, green. Number two, the hydropower dams. That is also green. Thermal power plants, today everybody needs power 24/7. Even for seconds of power change, it makes us uncomfortable. Everybody needs power. Everybody needs electricity in their homes or in the industry 24/7 uninterrupted. But from where this power is coming? We are generating more than 70% of our power through thermal route. So nothing is green. And the same power is used to produce steel, stainless steel, plastic, cars, manufacturing, chemicals, sanitizer, everything. So people feel it is a green. It is not green. It is an eyewash. When majority of the power is coming from to your home and my home through the power, the coal route, then nothing is green. So what can we do? The answer is following. Number one, we must convert Indian high ash coal into gases. That is called synthesis gas. JSPL has done it. We are converting already for the last couple of years coal to syngas and syngas to DRI, coal to syngas and syngas to reheating furnaces gas. We are now working on a prototype, coal to syngas and syngas to methanol, a prototype. Coal to syngas and syngas to high-speed diesel for the vehicles. Coal to syngas and syngas to benzene, petroleum, olefins. This is what JSPL is working at now. India is having more than 350 billion ton of coal. Unfortunately, we gasify only 6 million ton coal a year. This is unfortunate. Government of India has declared that they will gasify 100 million ton coal per year, which is too less. Coal bed methane, underground gasification, above the ground gasification, converting coal into gas and gas into power will bring to a great extent the green steel. How? The coal, whatever we are using for gasification, and when we have the gas turbines, the utilization or the efficiency level is more than 55%. Means 55% of the coal energy is converted into electricity energy. Today it is only 30%. So that means we save at least 50% in terms of CO2 emission. That is the future. Anyone out of you, if you go to the Google and you see a YouTube interview of Honorable Prime Minister in America about 2.5 years back, when somebody asked him, what are you going to do with the coal? And very aptly, Honorable Prime Minister is very intelligent. He told, we are looking, the technology suppliers, the foreign participants, we are looking the engineers and technicians to convert Indian coal into coal gas. And then the coal gas will be used as coal to liquid, coal to power through gas, coal to steel through gas, and finally the Indian coal will no more be a villain to the whole world. So this is the solution. So three solutions I told you. One, we should go as much as possible nuclear power, because we are a very efficient, and we are already graduated in nuclear technology. We have a good track record, whether it is at the Baba Institute or at any of the power plants. Fortunately, touch wood, we have shown a great amount of safety level. Number one. Number two, wherever possible, hydroelectric power plants, whether it is Arunachal Pradesh or it is in the Himalayas, wherever it is required. Number three, we must convert coal into syngas. Syngas means SYN, synthesis gas. And synthesis gas to power, synthesis gas to petrol, synthesis gas to diesel, synthesis gas to other petroleum products, including fertilizer, and synthesis gas to cooking gas. Everything is possible. China is already doing it. China Sinfuel is the largest company in the world. If you Google it, you will know they are in a big way. So this is how I always rate that easiest solution of complex technical problem lies with China. And we have to follow that. Hope I have answered you.
Yes, sir. And sir, there are certain questions on the prices from Kamal Jeswani, Hitesh Arora, and Piyush Agarwal. Basically, all of them are trying to know how sustainable are the current prices, up to what level the prices can further soar, and what is the extent of prices which is being driven by the cost push and demand pull, basically.
I'll tell you. If the delta you see in last couple of months, the delta is about 10,000 rupees a ton in Indian market, and out of that, around 5,500 rupees per ton is the contribution, or it is under compulsion because of the cost inputs, and 4,500 is a demand dividend. This is what has happened in India. And whereas for the rest of the world, if you compare with China, and we compare exporting to Middle East and Southeast Asia or to Europe, then this figure is 15,000 rupees. So this shows that we get more profit when we export, and that is ranging from $150 to $200 a ton. And the point here is the second point you asked, that what is the future scenario? Look, if China cools down, prices will come down. If Chinese people, they start exporting, if Chinese steel mills, they cut down their production by 20-25%, and they don't import from the rest of the world, then prices will settle somewhere about $600 to $700. If China remains stable at 1 billion ton, then prices will remain stable as of today. If China starts consuming more, then the prices may go up accordingly. The three big drivers today in the world. The highest price driver is America, $1,400 a ton. On India and many other countries, they have imposed duty 25%. Even after paying 25%, it is workable to supply to America, number one. Number two, the best paymaster, second best paymaster is Europe. There are no duties. $1,060 to $1,100 per ton is the price now. Number three is the Southeast Asia, $960 to $990 per ton. India, $800 per ton. This is where the steel industry has shown its concern and a call from respective ministries. I think everybody has behaved very sensibly and responsibly, because we do not want that Indian industry suffers for the want of material. Our first priority is to meet out the Indian demand. Our first priority is to meet out the domestic requirement, because that is long term. We are here because of Indian customers, and we will be here because of Indian customers. That is our first and foremost priority. But we are a business house also. If we are getting some additional spot prices, additional benefit, so in the interest of our own company and in the interest of our lenders, we must avail that opportunity. Last year, we exported 34% of the total produce in the international market. But first 3 months, we exported more than 85% when the country was under lockdown. But average was 34%. So we are also aiming this year 34 to 35%, and rest 64, 65% or 67% will be selling in domestic market. So I hope I have answered you. Prices will remain stable, should not be a problem. Again, China factor that can always vary situation 1 to situation 2.
Sir, you mentioned that China will be a key factor going forward as it has been in the past. So coming back to what Debal had asked earlier, there is a talks that China would curtail the production to reduce the emission levels. So, and that may keep them, away from the export market, and that in turn will keep the prices high. So is this theory or story viable, or there is only more of a lip service on the carbon emission levels, and the production levels in China will remain high?
You see, carbon emission CO2 reduction is a pressure on each country. But sometimes, it is very unreasonable, though we cannot compare that how much carbon emission America is doing or Europe is doing or they have done, and what we are doing or China is doing. It is always a disputed matter, and people come into a different kind of arguments. But I tell you one thing, China is very smart. They open a blast furnace, they close another blast furnace. So finally their capacities are same. They add a steel plant and close the worst plant or bad performing plant. Finally, the equation is same. They will not cut down their capacities. Total tonnage they want to continue, and they will continue till their infrastructure to usage ratio is reduced to less than 30%. It is the country's policy. They have to keep people engaged, 1.5 billion people. They have to keep them engaged. And the best solution to keeping people engaged is get them on the work. And this is what they are doing. China is going to be affected only in one way, when the cost of production in China, the manpower cost in China, because of the lifestyle of the Chinese people, it increases, then only they can calm down or cool down, like Korea has done. Initially, Japan has done. Japan was the lowest cost producer in the world for anything from needle to steel items. It was made in Japan, but the cost of production increased, manpower cost increased because the lifestyle changes. And finally, they cool down. So is Korea, South Korea. Now, third going to be China. India will take another 10 years, 15 years, that Indian people as a whole can come to the same living standard what Chinese urban people are having. So it will take some time.
Thank you, sir. Now I'm requesting Debal for the closing remarks.